Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Kenya's president backs his long-time rival Raila Odinga for upcoming elections. The support could make all the difference for Odinga as he throws his hat into the ring for the fifth time. But it is a blow to Vice President William Ruto. Also, opposition parties protest in South Africa over the budget. Critics say the government's sleepwalking deeper into unsustainable debt. The finance minister, though, says that though recovery will be tough, he is hopeful. And the Congolese Rumba continues to pulse through the beat of the country of its birth. The music and dance emerged in the 1940s and is as popular today as ever. But first, in Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta spoke at a convention of the ruling Jubilee Party to endorse long-time political rival Raila Odinga as his preferred successor in this year's presidential race. Kenyatta asked community and religious leaders in the Mount Kenya region to rally behind Odinga rather than Vice President William Ruto. Now, winning the region could tip the scales in Odinga's favour in his fifth bid for the top job. Caroline Kimeu, our correspondent in Kenya, tells us more.
Political leaders and residents of the Mount Kenya region turned up in the thousands on Wednesday at Sagana Lodge that's known for decisive politics in the region. Now, President Kenyatta announced for the first time officially that he's putting his full backing behind ODM leader Raila Odinga in the August 2022 presidential race. Now, the announcement, while not fully unexpected, does deal a bit of a blow to Deputy President Ruto, who had been making some inroads in the region. However, the area is largely a Kenyatta stronghold, and the full impact of Kenyatta's endorsement of Odinga will be more apparent in the months leading up to the election. Now, President Kenyatta and Ruto were formerly allies, but turned into political rivals for reasons that are not fully known. Raila Odinga and Kenyatta, on the other hand, were longtime opponents and until a 2018 acclaimed handshake deal between the two after a disputed election in 2017. Now, President Kenyatta said he entered into the handshake deal with Odinga for the peace and unity of the country, and also said that he supports Odinga's bid because he has the best interests of the country at heart. President Kenyatta will be expected to join Raila on the campaign trail as he puts forth his bid for the presidency.
Caroline Kamei there for us. Now, a look at some news in brief. There's been extensive damage in Madagascar's southeast after Cyclone Emnati slammed into the island overnight into Wednesday. With winds of around 100 kilometres an hour, houses were below water and trees uprooted in the latest weather emergency. It was due to exit Wednesday night, but there are fears about another tropical storm forming over the next week. The island has been repeatedly lashed by extreme weather this year. Tropical storm Dumako hit last week. 121 people were killed when Cyclone Batsarai struck in early February, and tens of thousands were displaced by Tropical Storm Anna in late January. The award-winning Ugandan author, who was tortured after having been arrested on charges of having insulted President Yoweri Museveni, has escaped to Germany. Kakwenza Rukira Bashaija was detained in December for comments that included describing Museveni's son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who many believe is maneuvering to take over from his father, as obese and a curmudgeon. Rukira Bashaija won the 2021 Pen Pinter Prize for an international writer of courage for his novel The Greedy Barbarian. He arrived in Germany on Wednesday for medical treatment after slipping out of Uganda 2 weeks ago after being released on bail. Ethiopia's Prime Minister said that there has been no negotiation with TPLF rebels at war with federal forces, but stated that he is open to future talks. The conflict between the army and Tigrayan fighters has raged since November 2020. The conflict has eased recently, leading to the lifting of a state of emergency, but concerns about persecution and rights abuses remain. Some Tigrayan members of a UN peacekeeping force in the region of Abyei, which is contested by Sudan and South Sudan, say that they're not ready to return to Ethiopia as they still fear detention. Well, in the annual budget review, South Africa's finance minister said that the deficit should be lower than expected by March, but that growth for the next 2 years will probably remain below 2%. Enoch Godongwana, has warned that economic recovery will be tough. The Treasury's allocated about €2.5 billion to extend a programme that was brought in to help the poor during the pandemic. The funding for that, in part, comes from a recent €660 million loan from the World Bank. Well, on Wednesday, opposition parties protested what they say is the country's unsustainable debt burden. Nadine Theron has more.
South Africa's debt to GDP ratio now stands at 70%, and debt service costs are now larger than the national health, police and basic education budgets. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the country has taken out several multi-billion rand loans from the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the African Development Bank and the New Development Bank. The latest loan from the World Bank is plunging the country further into debt. Opposition group the Economic Freedom Fighters have been protesting outside Parliament, accusing the World Bank and the IMF of being loan sharks. The party's Western Cape leaders say any shortfalls in the national budget should instead be funded by the expropriation of land without compensation. On Wednesday, they handed a memorandum of demands to officials from the Finance Minister's office.
1. An immediate return of the 11.4 billion loan from the World Bank. 2. A cancellation of all debts owed to the IMF and World Bank with immediate effect. 3. A disclosure as to what conditions were put in place for the loans from the recent World Bank loan and conditionalities of previous loans from the IMF and World Bank.
Other critics want to know exactly how the money from the World Bank will be spent and how it will be repaid. Concerns about the public sector graft are especially high at the moment. This follows the release of a report by South Africa's Special Investigating Unit that billions of rands allocated to COVID-19 in 2020 were instead plundered by corrupt state officials. Meanwhile, almost half of the country's population relies on social grants to get by.
Nadine, there are there for us. Now, 13 million people are facing hunger in East Africa because of a severe drought. Ethiopia, Somalia and northern Kenya have been struggling through years of low rainfall. Our correspondents went to Kula Mawe, a village in Kenya's Isiolo County. They sent us this report.
Over the last 6 months, 70,000 livestock have died in Isiolo County due to a lack of food and water. This herdsman is trying to keep 100 goats and 50 sheep alive.
Before, from Kulamawe, we only had to walk 2 hours to find pastures. Now we have to walk for around 5 hours.
Many residents have lost their cattle, and roughly 120,000 people are in need of food aid in the county. This borehole provides some access to water, but not enough to cover the entire region.
There are many problems because here where we get water, it's for us and the cattle. The cattle are in an overwhelming number. Because of the drought, people come to Kulamawe from places as far as Moyale. All of them have come here.
Cattle arrive by the thousands every day, and the scarce resources are often given to them first. It's difficult for these pastoralists to see their animals die, and many would rather deprive themselves of water.
Our main means of livelihood is cattle. We sell the cattle, we buy our children food, we sell the cattle, we pay school fees.
The government has provided emergency aid to help people get by, but the county's drought coordinator says that it's necessary to adopt long-term solutions and livelihood changes.
If we've been able to build resilience at the community level, then we'll not be able to have this problem. We will be having drought will be there, floods will be there, any other challenges will be there, but people will be able to walk and be able to navigate through these challenges or these risks or hazards comfortably.
The county plans to develop an irrigation scheme to support the growth of crops, a major change for these pastoralist communities, but one that authorities consider necessary to adapt to climate change and increasing droughts.
Now, the beats of the Congolese Rumba continue to pulse throughout the country of its birth. The music and dance emerged in DR Congo in the 1940s and today still serves as the soundtrack of the celebration of a nation. This report from Kinshasa.
Every evening, the streets of Kinshasa come alive to this rolling rhythm. The restaurants and bars of the sprawling capital sway to the sound of Congolese Rumba. Playing on crackling old loudspeakers, it brings out all sorts of characters, and everybody dances.
We can dance the rumba on Saturday night or the weekend. You have to dance.
This is a treasure. It motivates us. Where there's the Congolese rumba, there are no worries.
The musical genre was born in Kinshasa, and it's the soundtrack to the country's history. In 1960, when the King of Belgium came to sign the independence treaties, he was welcomed with a rumba called the Independence Cha-Cha, the anthem of the anti-colonialist movement. Its origins can be traced to ritual dances from Central Africa. Later, in the 19th century, it blossomed in Cuba among the descendants of slaves. It then came back to its roots in the 1930s, and today its future popularity is assured. The National Institute of Arts has been passing on the musical tradition to locals for over 50 years. Last December, UNESCO added the Congolese Rumba to its intangible cultural heritage list.
Well, that's it for Eye in Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.